Hello, everyone. This is your host, Manoj Tandon, on another episode of Dark Rhino Security Confidential. And today we are honored to have one of our guests come back. He's an alum of Security Confidential, and he's got his own podcast, the CISOLife. It's Brian Hoagley. He's a great guy. You will link to his past show here. But for those of you that don't know him, he's the CEO of SideChannel. He is a professor at Boston College teaching cybersecurity, and he's the creator and host of CISOLife, to name a few things. And he is an expert in the field of cybersecurity, all things risk. And we're glad to continue the conversation with him. Thank you for being here, Brian.
Thanks for having me back, Manoj. It's great.
Yeah, it was a great show last time. So, one interesting thing was when we talked last time, you really did a focus on SMB, which I know is the focus of what you do, as it is for us. So a lot of people that listen, that kind of hits home with them. It's they're like, finally, we got someone that's not talking enterprise. Say,
Right.
Bitanium, 5,000 seat minimum, $1 million, It's like...
That's not everybody. That's actually the enterprise is less organizations than small business. So yeah. And mid-market.
I think it's is it 800,000 companies in the United States that fall into the small medium business category, something to that effect.
I think it's actually, if you look at the NAIC codes, it's something up in the millions of companies in the United States that identify and are structured in the mid tier. And I think if you add in small business, it goes higher. Yeah, it's a significant amount. Like I always said, like there's only 2,000 companies inside the Fortune 2000.
That's right.
So there's everybody else.
And there's everybody else. And a lot of folks don't realize that small businesses can have monster revenues. We've had small regional banks that might only have 50 employees, but they have $4 billion in assets sitting with them, or clearing houses of credit card transactions that have 12 employees, but are knocking out $1 billion a year in clearings. So a small business is not just revenue. We really look at it by the number of employees and thus the number of resources you're really going to have to devote to a InfoSec program that's real.
Yeah. I use in between. I usually start with like what's your employee count, and then I move to, how much you're responsible for.
That's right.
Just to give me a sense of like, okay, how big are you? How big's the team? What are we working with? Who's been involved? And then what's responsibility actually look like for that team? But I had this discussion this morning with somebody. It's like, well, how do you define mid-market? I'm like, I don't. I let everybody else define mid-market. If the client comes to me and is like, we're a blah, blah, blah mid-market company, I'm like, great. We're going to probably work together. Like, we're an enterprise, we're looking to go do, like, we're probably not a good fit for you.
That's we have something in common there. So speaking of enterprise, you were actually in the process of going public last time we talked, and things were in a rapid mode of change. Please tell us what's happened.
Yeah, so it's August. What's today? August 3rd. So as of today. Yes, we signed and completed our merger in the beginning of July. SideChannel is now a publicly traded company. The company I merged with, I named the new board. I became the new CEO. We've changed the name of that company and is now SideChannel. So the brand is still and will continue to be SideChannel Incorporated. And we just recently finished this week with the SEC to change the stock ticker to SDCH.
So you're on NASDAQ then?
No, we're actually we're currently traded on the OTC.
Okay.
It was a OTC company that we merged with, but we have ideas and plans to, we're looking at, what would an uplist look like, and that uplist would land us on either the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ.
Oh, that's fantastic! Congratulations! I know what a heavy lift that is, Brian. That's a significant amount of success.
It was not easy. I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we are where we are today. I had a really great discussion this morning with my father. I'm like, I'm really happy and very confident in the role that I'm in now with the company where it is. Like, I feel like I've stepped so far away from being that practitioner, being a CISO,
Yep.
and now being the CEO of a company and building a team. I feel so much more comfortable leading an organization and building a team. And we both jokingly just kind of went back to like my days in Boy Scouts and being a leader as a young man and all of that. And he kind of ribbed me. He's like, "Well, you're doing it well then. I mean, what'd you think you're going to do? Just stop?" Like, so yeah, it's a very exciting time. I'm really excited about what we're doing. I'm very, very, very much looking forward to the future and what we're building and what else we're doing for our clients. And yeah, it's a whole new world right now for us. So
Well, you're still the number one sales guy, and which is what the CEO should be.
right,
You're out there, and you're tangible. We see you out there, and people know who
yep,
you are, and that's a good thing. I hope that never goes away. But I do got to ask one hard question here,
sure.
in terms of you know being an entrepreneur that you have been. I would imagine that at some point, you've done the thing and there might be some other ideas. Is there anything else on the horizon that you're thinking about that might cause you to repeat this cycle that you've done?
Well, now I think the focus for me is obviously bringing value to our shareholders, right? And I have to. That's new for us, right?
That's a big one, and
Yeah.
yeah,
So I have to, I want to make sure that they're aware and they're seeing what we're doing, so they keep or continue to invest in the company, right? However they choose to do that. But yeah, entrepreneurially, like, yeah, I think what I'm going to do is now I just have a new vehicle to focus that energy, right? I have access now to capital markets. I have access to, equity in a company to bring on talent and potentially do mergers and acquisition and things. So I have all these new tools now just available to me. So I don't think my entrepreneurial like spirit and like what I'm doing is going to necessarily steer me away or anything. It's I'm going to apply the same thing. I just now have more available to me to be able to scale that type of thinking. So yeah, there's a lot on the horizon. I'm not sure exactly what we'll go do after what we're working on right now. We've got a micro segmentation and zero trust product that we'll be launching in the
okay,
beginning of September. Like, there's development going into that. So we want to see that project through and launch that product, in addition to growing our services. The next thing, I don't know. I think we the side channel model has been, we have these really top level former CISOs who are experts. We have a great and trusting client base. So we can look into our client base and determine with those top level experts what is wrong inside of not only just one client, but what's a systemic gap across many,
yeah.
and can we build something or create something that can service that, and then is that valuable to the rest of the industry and market? And that's what we've been doing. I mean, and that's what I think we'll just kind of continue to do that. Again, still just focusing on the mid market, as the client. I'm not going to necessarily think about building enterprise products and services first. Mid market products and services can scale up to enterprise needs,
Yes, they can.
but
And your
it
sales
doesn't go the
cycles
other
are
way
much
usually.
better. It doesn't go the other way, but
Right.
you have a much more receptive market, I think, because you can get in touch with decision makers
Oh
at
yeah,
the highest level, right?
exactly.
And that's an impediment at the enterprise. So anything new at CISOLife you want to also bring before we get into the core of SMB and
Yeah, I mean,
cybersecurity?
so we just started. Well, we've been doing it for probably about 2 months. A daily discussion. There was a lot of talk and people kind of just, hey, I saw this in the news, and does that seem scary or is that important? And I hear a lot from clients and just other peers like, how do I decipher all of this stuff? Like, what do I make of all these news stories? So I had this idea. I'll just do a live show a couple times a week where I just pick out some of these things and just give you Brian's view on each of them. And it's basically like, yes, this is a scary news cycle. You should worry about it if you are in the Fortune 50. But if you're not, don't. Like, cut through the noise. So it's just been a fun way to kind of get through some of these news items and just kind of level set people to like, you're a 50-person company. You're not using that technology in your environment. It doesn't matter to you.
Don't
If
worry
your
about
board
it.
asks, tell them it's not applicable and move on with your day. So that's been fun. And then One of my other partners in the firm, David Chasteen, former CIA warfare officer, he was our delivery CISO into GoFundMe, and he's been great. And so he and I just started a new show with our head of marketing to just take CISOLife to more conversational about bigger and broader topics. Yesterday we just did one on privacy concerns post Roe v. Wade and the breakdown of privacy expectations as a consumer for using apps or other things. And it's like, we're just trying to tackle some other conversations that we keep kind of hearing. And it's like,
okay, you can't say that and then not have me follow up on that. We just derailed this conversation. So, so explain to the audience, what are the implications beyond the women's reproductive rights of Roe v. Wade on individual privacy? I think there's a lot of mysticism out there on this, but what's the reality of it?
I think so. Our take and view of what is happening or about to happen is that providers of technology are going to be in a much more free position, or technology and data, much more free position to be able to share that information with people who request it, considering law enforcement or private companies that maybe have an agenda to target and find out if women are, getting abortions or things like that. So like period tracking applications, right? You download that from whoever built it. You signed a EULA or terms of service to be able to do it. Do you know what you agreed to? Do you know what data that person is now sharing?
No. Does anybody read those things?
Right. But now in some states, potentially post Roe v. Wade, there is an opportunity for that data to be shared with law enforcement. And could law enforcement then use that information to track down people or potentially press, legal ramifications on folks if that state puts in place those things where, hey, if you travel out of state to go get one, or if you get one, you can be tried, or, you can be, prosecuted.
So how is
states have been talking about that, right? So now there's a mechanism for them to get that data to be able to actually have a target list. Do people even know that?
I doubt it, but I was going to ask, like, how does that change materially from the paradigm we were in before, where if your data, like if you were using the Apple Health app, and a lot of people use that app, and your data is stored in iCloud, and law enforcement, for whatever reason, wants to get access to that data, they can absolutely subpoena Apple for it.
But they need a warrant. They need a
warrant. Yes,
cause.
they need reasonable cause.
They can't just walk into Apple and just say, "Hey, I want to see this person's data." They need to have a reasonable cause.
They need a reasonable cause.
Now the stage is being set where law enforcement could say, "Hey, we believe that this person illegally obtained an abortion by going out of state, and in our state, that's illegal. We believe that happened." Tracking app. We know that this person uses this app. Here's a subpoena because we have reasonable cause to believe that they did this, and you have the data that can help us support prosecute our case. Hand it over. That was not an existent scenario before.
Well,
right?
That's
going to
give a lot of people pause for concern, or that should.
Sure.
Maybe don't
we went further, and we're just like even thinking about it. And we just shot this yesterday, so like, please link to it once we will absolutely.
Emily, please make a note.
We one of the things we were talking about was like, for instance, there was a story in Gizmodo. This is actually what started our conversation. There was a story in Gizmodo about a 13 or 14-year-old girl who had purchased a number of items at a Target, and then Target, through direct marketing, sent her some type of brochure or something about, a coupon to a crib because she was expecting. Well, her father saw that before she did.
Well,
so our question is, suddenly everyone, when you shop on Amazon, right, you kind of have an idea and think, all right, they're looking at my data. They're doing analysis on my data. They're going to target. Totally doing that. We almost all just believe, like, know and accept that that's happening. But what happens when I walk into a Walgreens or walk into a brick and mortar store and buy something? Did I sign a terms and condition when I walked into that store to purchase something that you could do something with my data? Who's that on? Is that on the brick and mortar store? Is that on MasterCard and Visa? So now and because most people, right, we've been shopping in stores since forever.
Yep.
This is not something that people are thinking they even need to think about, because we've never thought about that before. Oh my God, I'm walking in someplace physically, and now that data can be used, either against me or to target me. In fact, this actually, one of the scenarios I brought up because I saw was, I think it was Walgreens got caught because a woman came home after shopping at Walgreens. She'd been shopping and using a week or so later, she got a care package box filled with Infamil and other things, telling her, congratulations, you're going to need this. It was a promotional thing. She freaked out, posted on Twitter. So who knows if this was true, but it presented as true. And I think it is. Two things were really weird. One, this happened during the Infamil shortage. Okay. That happened a couple months ago.
Okay.
Two, she had a miscarriage. So she suddenly got this care package after having a miscarriage.
But that's HIPAA data. You would think. You would think.
What they're doing is they're collating and analyzing the data of your purchases that you made. That's not HIPAA protected. I bought a toothbrush, right? I bought some toothpaste. I bought that's not HIPAA data. That is store data. And then they synthesize it and do analysis on top of it and go, if somebody's buying this thing and this thing and this thing, and then a week later they're buying this thing and this thing, what assumptions can I make? You start profiling people basically based on data. That's what's happening. Is that companies do that?
That's been going on for so much. It has been, because when you sign up for the loyalty programs, you're giving that data away, right? You are the product at that point. So in exchange, you're getting the coupons, you're getting
convenience.
And
you're getting reduced prices.
And you're getting reduced, but you signed up for it, and you signed that dotted line. So now,
did you know that was going to lead to targeted marketing of you on things that could be, what if that woman had an abusive spouse, right? That got that, and then suddenly, and she didn't tell him or her, right, that she was either pregnant or now wasn't pregnant. Now that causes these have like real world ramifications. These type of like ads and targeting and things like this when you use this data. So the question really is where's the responsibility for these organizations? And unfortunately, the responsibility for those organizations is to their shareholders. It's not necessarily to the consumer in those efforts. Why? Because these scenarios prove them out. They're purposely putting people into awkward or potentially harmful situations as consumers. And now you're sitting there going, well, who do you care more about? Making dollars by upselling other products, or basically getting ahead of somebody in purchasing something that could lead to an issue?
So what is one to do short of paying in cash and not
paying
cash?
No loyalty programs.
No loyalty program. Yeah.
No, it's I think this is where reasonable regulation comes in, right? When companies and corporations, right, aren't doing the right thing by their consumers, right, and clients, right, a reasonable government should have the opportunity to step in and say, okay, here are the new rules, guys and girls. These are the rules you need to play by, because you're obviously not taking and building those rules for yourself. So we have to give you new rules. And that's what reasonable regulation should put into play, right?
And in this political climate, I think that would be an interesting conversation to have in Congress and see what happens.
The only other option is don't shop there. But
everyone's so used to it. Who wants to not shop on Amazon? Who doesn't want to, get 10 cents off a gallon of gas when you go to your grocery store? And
when it's free, you are the product, right?
You are the product. And people need to, it's like the Samsung EULA. I don't think anyone's ever read that, but I think it used to be. I haven't seen any of the new one, but way back in the day, if the TV had a camera on it, they had the right to actually turn it on. And you gave them that right. So
I had one. Actually, Samsung's a great example. Washer and dryer that I have. In order for me to use the Wi-Fi so I can see on my app when the load of laundry is done, right?
Yeah.
Or kind of where it is in the cycle.
Oh, yeah.
inside of that, it also authorizes that data to be shared with my local power company if they have the capability, so they can monitor and manage energy consumption. Who reads that to figure that out?
It almost reminds it's a great idea for a service or a product or a blog of listing the gotchas in all these EULAs that says
That would
here,
be,
here it is. This is what you signed up for, and just know that's what you signed up for. So,
yeah. So
so
yeah, that's, I mean, overall in all of CISOLife, we've got that new show, and it's just conversational like this. It's like just get some professionals together, talk about issues. I'm not a journalist. I'm not going to do the David Spark thing. Like, I'm not a journalist with hard hitting
yeah,
questions. It's just
well,
it's
and
it's a
those are
step
fun.
short of, yeah.
But we're trying to educate people. I would just love to
Ooh,
hear from someone to come back and say, "Hey, man, you actually helped me out. Yeah,
that's
you
I hear
said
you.
something that I could use," and I'd be
Sure.
like, you know what, that's pretty darn cool. So let's talk about this SMB business then. You know what? Let the basics here. A lot of them don't believe they are targets. They
Well,
just
yeah,
don't.
that
That's fundamental. So let's do a
those
little
people I push off
recap
to the
on.
side.
Yeah,
I literally push those people to the side, because I'm like, I'm not here to sell cybersecurity. You either believe it's a risk or you don't. If you don't believe it's a risk,
but
I'm not going to
okay.
try to
So,
sit here
but
and
if
convince
you
you it is.
are a person that is concerned but don't know why they should be concerned, why should
Ah,
they? Why should they be concerned? Because they don't know.
well,
They're IT guys saying, "Well, you
right,
could get hacked." In the small medium business, you might have a director of IT or two guys supporting your network or something like
right.
that, and they're saying, "Well, Brian, just buy CrowdStrike or something, and we're good to go, and you might get hacked otherwise, and that's your extent of knowledge." So now what happens?
It,
By the way, no offense to CrowdStrike, I just picked on them because they came to mind. They,
for most organizations, like in that bucket where they're like, I think it's a problem, but I don't know what we're doing about it. That's at least the first step. You've acknowledged that it is an issue, and you're not armed or well versed in it enough to know what to do. It's just like if you got a contract and you're looking at it going, I should probably have a lawyer look at this. It's the same thing. You want me to sign what? What are the ramifications of me signing this? I don't actually know. Let me get an expert. Unless I am an expert, and then great, read it. But it's like you got to have that same type of thing with cyber. It's a business risk that can have an impact on you. Sure, you could get hacked. You could also not get hacked.
yeah.
But what are you doing in case, what are you putting in place to either keep it from happening, or if it does happen, reduce the pain, right? That's the biggest thing. So you and I kind of started, and why I'm set up in the studio is like, I think the first thing you need to do is actually assess yourself, or have someone assess you,
And
right?
how do you do that practically? That's
Yeah.
what let's do like a kids 101 session here.
So the first step, like I like, are select a set of controls. Okay, controls, or a framework, whatever you want to call it, or a standard. Okay. So inside of the US, we'll be US centric here a little bit, right? I like the NIST CSF, Cybersecurity Framework. Okay. If you're healthcare, you're held to HIPAA. There's controls inside of that. If you're in Europe, use ISO, right? If you're in the DoD, use CMMC, use 800-170.
And you
There
also
are
got CISA
standards there. Hmm?
that is prescriptive on
Yeah,
tactics.
yeah. I mean, but there's controls. I mean,
There,
these can all be prescriptive. Prescription is just who does it. Do you self prescribe? We're going to follow this, because NIST CSF is a risk management framework. There's
so
no one mandating you use it.
sure. So do you do NIST CSF or do you do NIST 7621 or do you do
Yeah.
NIST 853? Like, so now I'm, because believe me, people look at this and they get lost when they go to
Oh, sure.
NIST.gov. It's what
So
happened?
I like this one, right? So I like this one. I wrote a book on it because I like it so much. Um, this works for a majority of organizations. 853 is a volume of controls to go through. This is 108, right? So I like this. So you need to select something you can actually do, right? And see through. This is the starting point. And this is where I think I see a lot of people skip and just go right to, let's build a strategy. Oh, okay, we should go do this. And let's implement CrowdStrike because we need EDR. And then let's do this for vulnerability management. It's like,
Oh my God, that's the majority of
you,
the market right there, Brian.
you jumped over a couple things. One, select a framework, right?
Yep.
Two, assess your organization against that framework. What is known as your current state? Okay. If you don't know what you currently look like today, how can you build something to what you want to look like? Right. So the second one is, once you do an assessment of your current state, okay, now you know what you're doing. Am I meeting 108 controls? Am I meeting 8 of the controls? Right.
Okay.
How well am I meeting some of these controls? Then what I like to do, and this is NIST's entire methodology here. Like, this is not Brian's way of doing things. Like, I totally adopted the standards on risk management framework, which is current state, right? Do a gap analysis against the standard. Okay, where do you basically sit? And then what do you want to, create your target state? What do you want your target state to look like? Which is, this is what we should look like. It doesn't, for NIST specifically, it doesn't need to be all 108 controls. It could be 100. It could be 78. Find the ones that are applicable. Find the ones that you're like, yep, for us, these 80 are applicable, and those 80 are reasonable for us to go do. We're meeting 40 of them, so we have 40 to go work towards. Now,
is there if there was a top 3 things at a minimum, if you do nothing else, at least do 3 things. Do you have anything like that go into that's out of the 108?
Oh yeah. Implement MFA on, so PRAC3. If you look at inside the NIST framework, right? Number 1 control. I'll just drop it over here.
Oh, you're off the screen.
Oh, damn. That's off. Okay. Here. PRAC3.
Cool.
Terrible 3. This control basically says remote access is managed. That's unfortunately all it says. But what it means is, do you have MFA on your admins, your users, your remote access VPNs, into email, things like that, right?
In fact,
implement that one.
Cyber insurance companies now requiring PAM, which is part of PRAC3.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing if they're going to even issue a policy in many instances anymore. So that's very cool. You're spot on.
So the short answer, right, is not just that control. It's really just MF. So I like to see MFA across an organization. I like to see email security, because that seems to be a huge attack vector for organizations, right? That's where a lot of things are coming in. That's where your communications are coming in. Heck, things are authorized through email, right?
Yes.
Tell the CFO, send money to this account, not that account. Happens more than not. So, right, and that's protected by MFA too. So these 2 things are great. I then it's going to be a combination of things, but I like to rope in incident response, right? So that requires for me a couple things. One, some type of 24/7 SOC or monitoring. I prefer endpoint detection over network detection for most organizations, especially mid-market, and especially if they're newer, they don't have infrastructure. And then the second piece to this is the actual IRP, the plan. Because what you want out of IR is obviously somebody watching, but then the actual plan, in case something bad happens that they see, you know what to go do about it. So many organizations do not have a what do we do plan in case the bad thing happens in the middle of the night.
Okay. I can't argue with any of this. I wish I could, but sorry, I can't.
These are the things that, to me, these are table stakes. Like, these are the table stakes of security now.
So let's say we got the controls, we did the gap analysis, and we know that we don't have MFA, email, and IR, but I would take it the next step is to build some kind of a strategy before you go buy a box of rocks, or I shouldn't say rocks, but tools, really.
Well, it's just not always just tools. It's people, process, and tech, right? So it's, do I need to hire people? Do I need to build better processes? Right, exactly. You're going to build a roadmap, right? Or strategy, whatever you want to call it. Strategy is a roadmap. But that roadmap gets you from your current state to your target state. and you need to have a prioritization built into that, because maybe you're deficient on 30 of the controls. Well, which one do you do first? Do you do them in alphabetical order? Like how do you
I hope
decide
that's
what to
not
go
the
do?
case. I really hope that's a
It's
joke.
not that case. It's not. But seriously, like, this exercise requires you to prioritize, right? The gap
Yes.
analysis and creating the target state now informs building that roadmap with a prioritization, because you can't do everything. You can't just go nail down and be like, oh, cool, we're going to do 30 projects to knock out the 30 deficient gaps.
Oh
Nope,
my,
not going to
yeah.
happen. You're going to probably pick
Right.
one or two. You're going
Right.
to see that all the way through, right? And you're going to have to ride the risk that you're not doing the other 28, right? For a while. That's where insurance comes in. That's where
That's what.
insurance is supposed to come in, right?
Well, there's a lot of exceptions. So read that dang policy.
Oh
That
yeah,
could be a show
definitely.
in itself. Anymore, people are wising up. It's evolving. How about that? Let's just.
I did a YouTube I did a CISOLife video. I'll share it, or you can
Oh,
find it on the
please.
CISOLife show on how to get cyber insurance. Like my view, how to get
Yeah,
cyber
you had
insurance.
sketched out a little bit of it last time where you
Yep,
had talked about the brokers, you had talked about the underwriters,
yep. What they're
and
looking for, what you
for
need to build to get them to see what you're doing, making the broker your friend. They're supposed to basically be your champion and agent to the carrier. Yeah, all of that.
have you seen an instance where people have actually followed this strategy that's on the board and they have materially impacted their insurance rates? Are carriers giving points for that?
Oh yeah. I mean, this is not just me. Like this is what we do with our clients, because
Yeah.
and a lot of our clients don't have insurance or can't get renewals. We take this approach, and then you can use this to then go to the broker and say, no, 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 put your application aside. Here's what a program's supposed to look like. This is what we've done. And you convince them that your client or us are a lower risk, so we get better coverages, lower premiums, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of the goal out of insurance. I want to pay less for more coverage. But you can only do that if you prove that you are a lower risk to the carrier. The carrier, and they're not wrong. The carrier shouldn't just go, "Oh, you don't have anything in place. I'll write you a blank check." That's not what they do.
Well,
All insurance companies would be out of business. They need to better understand your risk posture. But they can only do that if someone can tell them intelligently what your risk posture actually is. This is built on a standard. So it's hard to argue with standards, right?
yeah, and this is, I know the salespeople, and we get a lot of salespeople listening. So they're not going to like this one, but a lot of times there's a conflict of interest there. So if you're whatever company you're associated with, you might bypass what you're saying here, which is the right way to do things, and say just go to the endpoint and
Oh
buy
yeah.
the two. And so be cautious of that. I think what Brian's saying here is correct, and at least make sure there are good salespeople who will guide you, but you should follow this. Make sure you're going through this for yourself.
Well, the thing that I've been a buyer for so long, right? Former CISO, purchaser of these products. And the thing that I saw that really irked me as a buyer was this. If I had a salesperson who came to me and I was saying, "Look, I've now decided I'm looking for an endpoint detection response capability, some type of endpoint solution. I've already done this already, right? I wasn't going to just skip this." I still hear, well, if this one product provider gives the salesperson 30 points and this other product provider gives this person 20 points, which product do you think that salesperson wants me to buy? The one where he's making the 30%, the 30-point margin.
Right.
Is that the superior product? Is it going to meet the controls that I've identified as
That's the
well or
real
better
question.
than the other one?
Does it meet the controls, and does it get you to the correct state?
So one of the things that I've done with the Real CISO platform, right, and doing risk assessments inside of this is the second part of the whole tool. We've been going through all of these vendors and figuring out what controls do they meet when you implement them. Let me tell you, a majority of vendors out there that we talk to can't tell me which CIS controls their product meets when I implement it fully. They
You know
can't tell
what?
me what CSF controls they meet fully when I implement it. We have to
I,
figure that out.
we'll have to
I'm sure I just
Off
made a
air, I'll
lot of
share the
salespeople mad.
OWASP matrix. We tried to do a similar exercise,
Yeah.
and it's a hellacious matrix because we looked at all the different products and where do they fit and where do they
Mhm.
fit in the NIST CSF standard. It's not for the faint of heart.
Oh yeah. So
But
I built
I'd
a
be
SaaS
happy to
I
share
built
it.
a SaaS platform that does that on the not and against the NIST and the CIS standard size, because I know that was going to look like a nightmare. But if I can give any advice to, like, redeem my position with salespeople out there, it's know what your product actually does against frameworks and standards. Don't just rehash the marketing messaging. Be able to tell me if I'm a smart CISO and I'm really into this, I'm doing this work right here, which means I'm looking for the things to meet these control gaps. Talk to me about what your product does against these controls. Don't just say, oh, we reduced breaches by 56% and our response time is blah, blah. I don't care. I don't care. That's not what I'm trying to build a program to. I'm trying to build a program to standards, because regulators are asking about what my program looks like against standards. My board is asking. My customers are asking. Nobody's asking about what's our mean time to response for an intrusion. Nobody's asking that, and that's what the marketing is saying from all these product vendors. So it's there needs to be a real shift in how people talk about what tools do when fully implemented.
But we've always said, and I don't know if you agree with this, that good compliance doesn't always equal good cybersecurity, but good cybersecurity compliance should be a natural outcome if you've built the program correctly.
Yeah. This isn't compliance play, right? This
Oh
isn't
yeah, I know,
like I
but
need to
that's
meet a
something
set of controls and then I'm done. This
oh,
is just to figure out, where do things fit? Like, did I just buy two products that do the same thing or have 50% overlap with each other? Oh my
yeah,
God. Why did I just
they
do
wouldn't
that?
do. Yeah, what we run into, like, well, we just want to check the box and get our SOC 2 type 1, or
Those companies are short-sighted in their approach. That's eventually going to
they're
rear its
not
head.
building a comprehensive
No.
infosec program. So
Well,
kind of, you built a platform that does this. I was going to ask you to do a little whiteboard on risk engineering. Can you walk us through that, or
risk engine.
or talk a little bit about, when you're evaluating risk,
Mhm.
how do we objectively, or maybe even subjectively, score things like lost brand value, lost sales revenue if we get impacted? It's not just the data, legal impact. If all this personal health information is stolen, are the feds going to fine us? Is that a risk, or is
Right.
you know
Probability by impact, right?
yeah,
Right? So that's the first thing, right? What are the chances of this thing happening to us? Okay, I'm a mid-market company. I don't believe that the Russian APTs are a concern for me because I'm not in that sector, and everything I've read tells me
sure,
that I'm not. Probability is probably low. But if they
right,
did, they're well resourced, the ROI is high for them, my security is not that great, so the impact's going to be high.
yes,
That's how that works. Like,
and
this
they're
is
going
a
to get
simple
in.
thing.
I'm going to
They're going to
kind
get
of
in.
dip.
Motivated attacker, just give them time and money, they're going to get in.
They're going to get in.
Okay?
Yeah.
So obviously the risk scenario is probability times impact. Where I think you need to then take this, right, is these are kind of your corporate risks, right? This is a corporate risk discussion.
So it's not
The
so, and that's an important point. So it's not just about the technology and it's everything. It's at the
No,
corporate.
this is like, okay, determining what are your actual risks.
Okay.
Russians are here, right? Commodity malware is probably higher, and impact is here because,
Yeah.
lower, because we have some things in place to reduce that impact. Great.
Okay.
What I think where your real question is that people skip is, well, of that impact, what matters? And everyone kind of goes with, well, everything's important,
Yeah.
right? Well, where is it? Well, you know what? If I have two systems, right? This one makes me $1 million a month. This one makes me $5 million a month. Where should I be putting my defenses? That now becomes a business discussion. Here's our risk. Here's what we're worried about. Here's what we need to go protect first over second. This is now an easy discussion with a business. Listen, if we believe that these risks are true, which you do need to have that convincing story that everyone then believes, yes, these are the risks. Great. Where do we apply the protections and where do we implement the things to reduce those risks? We should probably start with this one, number 2, $5 million a month. Okay. What controls, what do we actually do then? Here's your answer, right? These controls now become the answer of what you do. So this is why you're doing it. This is where you're doing it. This is what you're doing.
Perfect. I think there's a little bit of a background, a disconnect in technology groups, whether it's the IT department or the InfoSec people, being able to articulate. They have to understand how the business runs too. And they have to get the ABCs of how their employer makes money.
Yep.
And
or operates. I mean, or nonprofits, right? Where are you spending money? What group is vulnerable in your organization that you need to protect? Whatever your mission is, right? It's not just corporate revenue dollars. This can be easily replaced by whatever the mission is of the organization. Hey, we've got this outreach program that supports these 3 states and impacts, 7 million people. We've got this one that impacts this small community, food bank. Okay, business decision. Let's protect the 3 million people first, and then let's protect the food bank. So this same type of thinking applies to organizations, counties, governments, all of them. It doesn't just need to be revenue based and corporate driven and corporate focused. This model is how you just think about what to go do where.
And if you don't have the people in house, that's where companies like yours would come into play, and they can help.
And yours as well. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have to, because you do need a guide. I'm a firm believer in that if you don't have the resources internally, at least get a trusted guide, whoever that is, and walk through this, because what you're describing is very succinct, it's precise, and it's doable by anyone that's willing to go through and spend the time on this.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. So, Brian, I know we're coming at the end here again. This is, as always, it's a fascinating conversation.
No, thanks for having me. This is great.
But again, I want to give you the floor. Anything that you want to guide us to, that you want to make sure we're putting in the show notes, and anything you want to plug?
No, I mean, just look, you can follow us obviously in sidechannel.com. You can follow me in any of the content that I put out. I love doing these talks, and I'll continue to do these talks as long as people keep, smashing that subscribe button or liking the content. I'll keep putting it out. You mostly follow me on LinkedIn, and then obviously the stuff that we're doing on YouTube. But, just excited to be, part of this industry, and I'm working on something that has been my passion and something that I truly enjoy to do. So I can't really ask for anything more than that at this point.
So you're not working for a living anymore. So this sounds like you're having fun. So
it is. It's a good time, and I think we're solving real problems for people who need it. I think that's the important thing. I mean, it's more important, I think, than anything else.
I can't disagree with you at all. The market space you've picked, those folks need help, and I think they represent one of the largest risks to a host of different supply chains in the country, whatever.
Definitely.
Right. So, Brian, again, take care, and thanks for being here. And anytime you have a major update, you want to be on the show, just shoot us a note, and you can even do a short if you need to.
Perfect. Would love to.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thanks.